Hello, this is Keith All, and welcome back. Today's tutorial is going to be on how we could clean up this data set that you see here using Power Query. You'll learn probably learn something new today with the tasks that we're going to be taking care of today. So let's go ahead and let's open up a new sheet, and then let's go into Power Query. So basically you could go up to data and then get data from file, and I have an Excel workbook. Give it a second to load up. This will open up the Power Query section where it's going to look at the data file itself, and then we can select the sheet that we want, which is the sheet 1. It's going to give you a preview of everything. So what we want to do now, we want to be able to transform this data. Give it a second. Okay, now it opens up the Power Query editor, and now we can start with our transformation of this data set. So the one thing that we want to do is we want to be able to detect and remove a blank rows in our data. So if we click on, just for instance, we click on here, you could see that well, in this particular case, we're only selecting the date column, and we do see that there are nulls here. So for some rows. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire row for that is empty. But what we can do is, first of all, look at the bottom left here. It says 999 plus rows in our data set. So there's more than at least 1,000 rows in here. So let's go over up to home. And then what we want to do is then select remove rows over here, click on that, and then we want to remove a blank rows. It's going to detect in our data set there are rows have been removed. So over here on the right, you see the step, it says remove blank rows. Now if you look down below here, it says 997 rows. That means that it looks like 3 rows were removed here that were completely blank. So our next step is, now let's look at trimming and cleaning text columns to see if there's any leading or trailing spaces and non-printable characters. So what we can do is let's select the certain columns that we want to clean up in this fashion. So we're going to go ahead and click on the department, control click the employee, still holding down the control key, and we're going to be selecting the region, control click. We want to select the location, the category, and flag columns. And now what we want to do, you could see that we'll get to other sections later, like the null and blanks and stuff like that. But what we want to do with text fields is we want to be able to see, we want to remove the leading and trailing spaces and non-printable characters. Now, to the visual eyes, we may not be able to see that at this point, but this is one way we can be assured to remove those characters. So let's go up to Transform tab, and now we want to format, go over to the Format area, which is over here, and select on that. And what we want to do is, first of all, we want to do Trim. So it removed deleting and trailing spaces by using Trim. So that's what Trim does. We want to do the same thing, but let's do it with Clean option. And what this does, it removes non-printable characters. Again, we may not be able to see them, but they may be there anyways. So let's still go up to Transform, Format, and let's Clean. Okay, so went ahead and did that. Now let's go back over here to the department column, and you can see that a lot of departments are not filled in. Before you go ahead and do this, you want to make sure that your data set is already grouped by department, meaning that you're going to have a section for finance, and then lower on down you may have other departments below that. In other words, you're going to have all finance first, and then you're going to have your subsequent departments below that. So you don't want them to be interchanged. Like you don't want finance for the first couple of rows and then go down to row 500 and find more finance departments. You want to make sure that they're already grouped before you do a fill down on this. So let's go ahead and select the department column, and we want to go up to Transform, and we want to select Fill over here, and we want to fill down. So basically what that does is it detects where finance is, and it has some blank rows, and it's going to fill down below that all the finance departments for you. And it subsequently did that for all these different departments that we have here, like what you see here. So let's cancel out of that. Now our next step is let's work with the ticket ID column, and let's go over here. So we have this ticket ID column. You could see that some of them are filled with error. Some of them are filled with nulls. So what we want to do is we want to be able to replace those values. So let's select the ticket ID column. Let's go up to Transfer tab again. And we want to be able to replace values, which is over here. Select that, and we want to replace some values. So first we're going to deal with the ERR. So we want to find ERR, and it's case sensitive, and what we want to do is replace it with a 0, because this is going to be a numeric column. So we're just going to place 0 there and click OK. So now that did that, and now let's look for null values in this column. As you can see, there's one null value here. Again, we're going to replace values, and we're going to type in the word null and replace it with a 0. Click OK. So now it took care of that. And so now you can see by this column, we got 997 rows. 0 of them are empty now. Okay. So we did that. Now let's work on what we want to do is basically once we do this, the next step after cleaning this data set and actually loading it back into Excel, we still have to do some work because we don't want these ticket IDs to be 0. We want them to have a valid ticket ID. So we want to be able to easily flag this. So what we can do is we can add a conditional column to this to flag this. So let's go over here to Add Column, Add Conditional Column. And we wanted to add a column. Let's go ahead and delete this. And we want to call it, in this case, ticket ID underscore as status. And how do we want to flag this? Well, we want to look at the ticket ID and we want to see if it equals 0 because we filled in the errors and null values with 0. So we want to look for zeros. And what do we want to put into that? We want to type in missing, MISSING. Else, what this else does, if the ticket ID column already has a valid ticket ID number, it'll uh, uh, replace it with a null. You'll see why in a second. So let's go over here. So we did this. So ticket ID over here is 0, so this is missing. This right here had a valid ticket ID. So how do we change this? So we go up to the M code in the formula bar here, something very simple to do. It says else null. So we want to replace that with the existing value that's in this column. So we do that by square brackets, type that in, type in the ticket ID column, and then press enter. And it takes the value that's over here and it puts it in here. So you'll see why in a second or in a few minutes, once we get into Excel, auto back in Excel, what we can do with this for further analysis. So as you can see up here in the status of this, it says that 682 are empty. Well, why is that? Well, the way Power Query handles this is it evaluates every step sequentially. So when we create a conditional column, Power Query hasn't yet applied the final data types or cleaned white space yet. So the column quality bar may still show empty values, as you can see here. When a later step then recalculates the query, which you'll see in a second, the status updates and those empty rows will disappear. And this is normal. It's because Power Query processes data step by step, not all at once. So you'll see in the next step when we do something, this will get updated. So now let's work on to the next item. Let's work on the sales column here. Oops. Let's go over here, sales column. So you can see that the sales column, some of them have NAs, some of them may be blank or null, as you can see right here as I'm hovering over it. So what we want to do is, again, we want to transform and replace values. And we want to look for NAs, and we also want to look for nulls and replace them both with zeros. So let's go back up here. We want to transform, replace values here, N/A, and we want to replace it with a 0. Click OK. And then what we want to also do is find any null values in here. We want to do the same thing. Replace values with a 0 and click OK. So we took care of that. And what we want to do is we also want to create a conditional column in this instance also. So let's go ahead and do that. We want to create a conditional column for sales. Add column, conditional column. Let's call this sales final. Let's take the caps lock off. Phi and AL. And we want to look at the sales column. And if it's equal to 0, we want to add something descriptive. Check sales maybe. And again, else we're going to leave this as null, because what we want to do is then replace these null values with the actual sales number itself for the ones that do exist. We go up to the M code in the formula bar, type in square brackets, and the square brackets mean we're going to access the sales column. Press enter, and it brings over the sales numbers that do exist. And like I said here, remember this right here, the ticket ID column. Now everything is okay because as I stated before how Power Query works. And this will also again update as we go through the same process. So now let's look at the region column. Let's go over here, region. We want to replace the null values, okay? And we also want to do the same thing, add a conditional column, because we want to look at this further and go to maybe other departments on, well, what is the true sales figure? We know it's not 0. We want to input the right sales figure here. So for region, we want to go ahead, replace the values with a blank in this case that are null. So add a transform, replace values. We want to find null, and we want to replace it with a blank. So click OK. So we get ahead there. Now let's add a conditional column. Add column, conditional column. And this is region final. You could call this whatever that you want. It doesn't have to be exactly this. Now we want to look at the region column. We want to see if it's blank because we changed the null values to a blank. And now what we want to do is we want to say unknown. Again, you could call this whatever that you want. Leave this blank and click OK. And now we want to do the same thing. We want to change the M code to equal. If a region does currently exist in a region column, we want to put that original value back. Press enter. And as you can see, it inputted that. So if you look at here, there are no blanks, no nulls. It's just either the region itself exists or unknown, which is what we did, which is what we wanted. So now for the rest of these columns, okay, I'm going to go through the same process as we did before. Let's say for the location, employee, and category and flag columns, I'm going to replace the values, the null values, with blanks, and then create conditional columns so we could look at these further in the process. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now what I did here was I did the same thing for employee status, category final, flag status. I created a conditional column as I did before, as I showed you in the video. And now we're ready at this point to check the data types for all these columns. So what we want to do is go over here, and for each column it shows the data type. Now this one is already date, but if you click on this, we could see it shows the icon of date. So that's fine there. For the sales column, we want to make sure it's a whole number. And as you can see, this ABC 123, that signifies a whole number already. So that one's okay. The ticket ID should also be a whole number, which it already is. And let's look at the department. The department should be, the rest of these should be all text. So if we click on this ABC, that signifies it's already a text field. So that's fine. Employee is already a text field. Okay. Let's scroll over here. Let's look at the rest of these. Now these are the ticket ID should be not a text field, but it should be a whole number. So we're going to go ahead and change that. The location should be a text field, which it already is. The category should be a text field, which it already is. Flag should be a text field. And remember these null values here, we created conditional columns over here, and we're going to address that at a later time. But all these conditional columns here that we created together should all be text fields. And as you can see that they are, let's scroll over here, and they are. So now at this point, we could go ahead and load this back into Excel. We could change the query name over here towards the right to whatever that is that you want to call it to. I'm just going to call this sales. Okay, press enter. Okay, now we go up to home, and we want to close and load to this option here will load it directly into Excel, into an MC worksheet. And give it a second. Okay. So as you can see, the data set is now not completely clean because we have to check all these errors and stuff like this. And this is why we created conditional columns over here towards the right. So our next step at this point, we have to verify with certain departments in our company to check to see, well, why were these ticket IDs missing? So what we could do now is we could filter on all these. And let's go back, let's scroll down, let's go back down here, and let's just select the ones that are missing. And so now we're able to take this subset of this data set, pass it along to the necessary people, and have them fix these missing ticket IDs and give us valid ones. And we do the same process for all these other ones. For the sales numbers that are 0, the regions that are unknown, or employee status, well, we don't have some employee names in here. Again, we send this off to someone else, or we do investigative work ourselves to fill this data set back up with the valid values for each and every column and row. So this is how you could clean a data set using Power Query in Excel. I want to thank you for stopping by today. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and as always, like and share this video because this helps YouTube get this video out to more people. Thanks again. You have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye now.